already. Forbes in review, it's all in my hands. What about you?
All right. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining our roundtable discussion on business analytics. Just to let you know that this session is exclusive to the Middle East and Africa and South Asia regions. My name is Garima and I'm joining you from Dubai. Before we start, let's just put in the chat box where we're tuning in from, just so we know. I can already see a few from Mumbai, from Nigeria. That's so exciting. Let's see, where else is everyone from? Zimbabwe, okay, Las Vegas. Thank you, Professor Chase. Pakistan, Morocco, Delhi, nice, Jordan. All right, well, we're here from all over the world. That's amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time out to do this. And just to let you know that this session will run for about 50 minutes. Please feel free to put any questions that you might have in the Q&A chat box below. And we'll get to those questions post the event once we're done with the entire pre-prepared panel discussion questions. Before anything else, I will introduce our stars for today, our panelists. We have Professor Chase, Professor Thomas. They're both Professor of Business Analytics, and they're also industry experts in the business analytics industry. And we also have with us a HALT alum, a business analytics alum, Adam. And then alongside them, we have our wonderful host, Jad. Jad is part of the enrollment team in Dubai, but he's also a HALT alum who graduated from the Boston campus in 2019. So without further ado, I'll pass it on to Jad, and then we can take over from there.
Thank you very much, Garima. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, everyone. So yeah, like Garima said, I'm a HALT alum myself. I graduated in 2019 from the Boston campus with a master's in marketing. And I'm currently the enrollment advisor for the master's programs in the MENA region. I saw some of my students attending. So hello, everyone. Nice to see you. So basically what we'll be doing is, so Professor Chase, Professor Thomas, and Adam, our alum, will be telling us a bit about their insights about business analytics, about their experience inside the classroom, outside the classroom. So yeah, we'll be asking a couple of questions and I hope you guys enjoy. So if you can first tell us about yourselves and what do you do inside and outside of HALT? Maybe Professor Chase, you'd like to start?
Sure, that'd be great. Hello, everyone. And first off, welcome to the webinar. I'm logging in here from Las Vegas. It's conference season. Algoraving is a big thing in Las Vegas right now. Just my background, I'm an educator first. I've been in university level education, mostly at the graduate level for 10 years. And before that, I was working for education as well with EF, and I was in charge of Russia, Indonesia, and China for advanced analytics. So that's kind of my background a little bit. In the more recent years, going back in the past, I was in government research in China, and I was the only foreigner allowed to have a security clearance to look at sensitive data. Every time that we do something like the Voice of China comes into the market, something like that, that was my responsibility to go through the contracts and things like that and look at the reach and media data for those things. So short intro and pass it off to you, Professor Thomas, who looks like he's in a cave at the moment, but he's not.
Thanks, Professor Chase. And thank you everyone for joining. Yes, so I am in my own cave. I'm actually based right now from Maui, which is one of the Hawaiian Islands, still part of the US. But yeah, it is 5 a.m. So as you guys can see, it's pretty dark around here. But just wanted to speak a few words about myself and give you a short intro. I am a quantitative analyst at Wells Fargo currently, a vice president running investment products, investment risk for equity products, fixed income products, other multi-asset class products. And that's kind of my day job, right? In San Francisco, not on Maui, in San Francisco. And then on the weekends and on the evenings, sometimes also on the weekdays, I teach at HALT. And that's my passion. My teaching is my passion. I love talking with students, spreading the love for data and for analytics. And that's also why I'm here, to spread the passion and shed some light on analytics today. So welcome. Adam, I guess you're next.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, everyone, and good morning, good evening to everyone. As it was previously mentioned, I am a HALT alumni as of last Friday, actually. I did, however, do the business analytics program a little bit while back in San Francisco. Hence, that's why you see the San Francisco skyline behind me. Currently, I live in Boston, Massachusetts, on the East Coast of the United States, but I'm residing or just staying for 2 weeks here in Hungary. But a little bit about my background. Before joining HALT, I had a financial services background. I worked for Morgan Stanley in wealth management, and I also took a little bit of a turn and went into medical sales to learn about the sales cycles, the sales conversations, and just how to deal with different types of people. And currently I'm working as a strategy analyst for an IT firm called Matterport out of the Bay Area. And about today's event, I am super happy to be here, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. And I might have a little bit different perspective than the professors here. So during the entire webinar, please feel free to put your questions in the Q&A, and we'll be more than happy to answer them.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you very much for the introduction. So I'm going to start with the first question. This is a question addressed for the professors. Can you respectively tell us what course reflects mostly reflects mostly your passion or what you do outside of HALT? So what's the one course that reflects what you do in your job outside of HALT?
Do you want to go first, Professor Thomas?
Yeah, totally. Okay. Is it only one course, or can I mention a few?
You can mention a few, it's okay.
I'll actually, so I related to my job. So like I had mentioned, I'm actually a quant analyst doing investment risk at Wells Fargo. And the course that matches my job is called Wealth Management, Investment Risk Optimization in R. I know that's a long name for a course, especially for an elective, because it actually is an elective that we run in the summer. And that elective is really all about portfolio optimization. It's about finding the right investments, analyzing risk for your investments, your portfolio, actually in both spaces, returns of those investments and risk of those investments. And everything in that course is being taught in R, using a coding language R, and very also quite heavy in statistics, but in a way that's understandable, right? And that relates to my job, because that's what I do day in and day out at Wells Fargo. Really excited. Second course that relates to what I do is the data science in R. So I am involved in a few projects outside of my team that are related to things that are not specifically investment products. And I think that a lot of those things that are being taught in the data science in R course are connected to those projects that I also am involved in at Wells Fargo. So those two courses, I would say.
Cool. And
Thank
like
you.
Professor Thomas, there's really no one course that can sum up what we do. It's a holistic approach. In fact, both of us are in design meetings right now for the program. Every now and then we go through the process of updating to stay as relevant as we can towards what's going on in the real world. And one of the things that I personally find very valuable in my career, though, is actually machine learning and data science in Python. Now, Thomas mentioned data science in R. Cool language, very good in statistics and the kind of analysis that he's doing. Python is more about kind of live feeds of data. So one of the more interesting projects I've done recently is to detect subsea signals for offshore oil rigs, where the data is coming in live and you have to understand what is pressure, what is flow, what is a light switch or an elevator, and all those signals are blind. So machine learning helps us in those regards to do some things to try to sort them out and try to group them together in ways that we can understand what the signals mean. And the hopes of that is to make sure that something on an oil rig does not explode, or we can run semantic analysis there to do something to say it's getting a little dangerous in this regard of pressure to flow. So now we're going to shut down the rig for the next 5 hours while we investigate. That's a combination of Python and machine learning. R is also one of the languages we could use there as well, although we wouldn't be able to connect it in the way given this project because the server and things like that. In other places are things like digital analytics. That's a really cool elective that we have. And it's one of those courses that teaches us about the collection of data and about how we can analyze and use it. A lot of consulting today is no longer in the realm of just connecting data together, but now understanding how to use it. Great course to learn the fundamentals of that.
Perfect, perfect. Very nice. And to piggyback on that, I would like to know if you could share with us, like going a bit deeper, an interesting project that was part of your classes, maybe something you did inside the classroom, like with the students, or a project that you like gave students to present. If you could give us an example of that, that would be great.
Sure. And Thomas, I'd love for you to go first, but before you go first, I'd like to ask the audience in the chat, who likes video games? Okay, off to you, Thomas.
That's a good question. I actually think I would love video games if I had more time on the weekends. Good question, Chase. Project. I'm gonna give out a secret here. Okay, a secret. The secret is that when running one of the courses on unstructured data and text data, we did actually go on a small field trip outside to actually collect data, to understand how data is being generated in the real world, because not everything is beautifully aligned in a table. Not everything is in Excel. Not everything is in a what we call a structured database or a relational database, RMDBS, right? Sometimes, and actually, if you consider the entire amount of data that companies can utilize, the majority of data is not structured. It comes in the form of text, pictures, audio, video, posts on social media, right? The entire internet is full of unstructured data, pictures and videos, right? And what we do on that field trip is learn how to collect that data, learn that in the real life, data is actually unstructured. And it's only structured once we sit down and put some frameworks around that data. So I think that a field trip is very enlightening. I love when students have these aha moments, and it's just, for me, it's really amazing to see how we all kind of imagine data, and after this exercise, how that changes, how that perspective can change after this field trip. So that's kind of the coolest projects that I have been through recently.
Cool, Thomas. Yeah, field trips are always fun. Best part of elementary school for me, other than recess. And that's good. It's always good to go out in the field. People don't quite understand what goes on there until they get there and realize how challenging it is in data collection. Now, those of you that like video games, I saw about 8 to 10 people. That's great, guys. And if your boys play, that's also cool, full said. Now, the reason I brought that up is one of our early projects in Python is to build video games straight up out of the box. You've got just a coding screen, a flashing blank screen. Your job is to code something. And you need to do this within the first 2 weeks of starting coding. It's a big challenge, but it's one of those challenges that actually lets you understand that you can do the things that we're teaching you to do. And it also lets you prepare for the things ahead, the pace of the program, everything like that. So in this, we essentially take a story. You get to select whatever you like, maybe an episode of Friends, maybe a movie you like, maybe a book or a children's story. And your job is to program that where a user interacts with your code, makes decisions, and either wins through the story or loses. Maybe you're doing the Three Little Pigs and the big bad wolf eats you in the first time you play. So you have to go back and you have to learn about loops and functions and conditional statements and how to handle text, because users are very, very crazy in terms of the things they can do with your code. So you have to now understand, what do they mean when they're giving you something? And the text adventure game challenge, it's actually a really fun one, because as soon as you start getting into interviews, it's one of those cool passion projects that lets you stand out a little bit more than something that we might do at every single school, such as an analysis of, I don't know, one thing that we might do is like an analysis of who survived on the Titanic. In fact, Professor Thomas and I both bring that up in our courses, but that's not going to let you stand out. Millions of people have done that. It's very, very good on the educational side and to learn things, but we've got a few projects in there that are going to help you be a little more colorful in that CV. And also, Adam, what do you think? I know it's kind of on the spot here, but other than the field trip, text adventure game, did you have any fan favorites?
I actually wanted to jump in here about the text adventure game. I was going through my Google Drive the other day, and I remembered that I uploaded the text adventure game to one of the Google servers so it can be run. The Python script can be run up there. And first of all, it really brought me a smile, because I remember those good old times of coding that game out. It was one of the first courses for me in analytics. And I discovered a bug that I didn't see back then. And I was running the game and I'm like, how did I not think about this? So just wanted to reiterate what Professor Chase was talking about, that users can really have different perspectives in terms of answers. And it was really eye-opening that I didn't think of something when I was designing the game. But in terms of the projects, to answer your question, I cannot really think of anything off the top of my head, but I'll try to think of this, and maybe we can revisit this question at the end of the panel.
Sure, absolutely, we can do that. Because I mean, my other question, so what we were talking about was mostly projects in class. And that's a question now, basically, you know, like for everyone. If you guys can, obviously without, I mean, if there's something confidential, without breaching it, but can you tell us about an innovative project that you've been working on outside of class?
Professor
That's
Chase,
for everyone.
Start,
even Adam, if you want to share it as
Adam,
well.
Sure. So does anybody like, I'm not sure of the Middle East perspective on this, so maybe I can just call on you, Jad. Do you get a lot of like spam calls, like phone calls that are robot calls about?
Yes.
Okay, so
I mean,
it's
not as much as in the US, but yeah, sometimes we do.
Yeah, it's nuts here. People are not respecting the US do not call list, which is a very, you basically sign up so that people cannot contact you for telemarketing purposes. I recently started writing a code to essentially detect violations in that, where it references who's registered to not be called by marketers and which marketers are calling. And every time a marketer calls someone that's on the registration list, they get fined a little bit. And actually, the person reporting them gets a little bit of a reward for reporting things like scams that could steal like your social security number or something like that. So within the first week of launching this, we'd made around $26 million in fines that should be distributed just on a small number of numbers within our little research group. And now that's actually being bought by the Department of Defense to continue the research, because it's one of those things that's very hard for the government to track, especially if you do something like Thomas works at Wells Fargo. If someone applies for a loan there, then you're kind of able to call those people because there is some form of solicitation, but it's crossed the line so much that now we have a project we're working on to essentially catch the people that are calling you that aren't supposed to. And that's a project I really like because I absolutely hate spam calls to the point where I never pick up my phone.
Everyone does. Who doesn't hate spam calls? In the UAE, you get a lot of spam calls as well. A lot. So you pick up the phone and then you just have, like you said, a voicemail or sometimes like a weird music. It's insane.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Thank you, Chase. Thomas?
Actually, I was about to ask Adam if he could go second because I have to change my light bulb. So that would give me 30 seconds to do that.
Okay, Adam, you're up.
I definitely don't have as near or as cool of a story to share as Chase just did, but I was thinking about mentioning something about a little project that I did before I got my job. Tableau and just data visualization in general is a big part of the business analytics program. And there's just so many cool things that one can do with data visualization. And when I was trying to apply for a job, the US job market is really competitive. And I tried to find a way how I can stand out, how I can differentiate myself from the crowd. And I came up with the idea to create my resume in a Tableau format that is interactive, and the user or the recruiter can play with my resume and just see different things. And whether it's just like clicking into different folders or showing graphs. So that was one of the projects that I did before I got my job. And that ended up being a big decision maker when I was onboarded. I know that there were about 5 to 10 applicants for the position. And today, a big part of my job is data visualization, and my team really like that. So I figured this could be an interesting idea for others too, that after you do your master's degree, how do you want to stand out? You apply those skills that you learned and you just try to find creative ways.
Very nice, Adam. Professor Thomas, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, just to share very quickly. So besides Wells Fargo, I'm really keen on entrepreneurship. Back in Poland, I have founded 2 companies. So I'm actually Polish, from Poland, right? Founded 2 companies in Poland and had a nice exit before I came to San Francisco. But now I am looking to kick off a new startup, and I'm using some of the coding, actually both in Python and in R, to codify a gamification platform that will enhance experience for higher education classrooms, right? So undergrad and master level classrooms. And what is really critical in this project and making it so innovative is the way that this tool would automate communications between all the stakeholders in the classroom. And you might think that there is a platform that does that, and that's true. Most institutions use Canvas for that, also called My Courses. But the communication is somehow limited. Now, this new idea, this innovative idea, would definitely use AI to help spin that off, to help suggest communication channels, communication time windows, time frames, and ideas to all stakeholders within the classroom. So I'm looking forward to having more details and to sharing more details on that with you guys. And I'm really excited to be building that product right now.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So, I mean, I'm sure everyone's happy to hear all those insights, from the professors. I would like to know from Adam, like, we know that you did a dual degree, you did a master's in business analytics, a dual degree in finance. So obviously you were exposed to a lot of courses. If you could tell us, like, from all the courses and the project that you worked on, what do you feel has given you the most relevant skill set? So the most transferable skill set that you can use in your day-to-day job?
Absolutely. I'm going to go a little bit back. Before HALT, I also studied in the US. I got my bachelor's done in finance. And when it came to finding a job, I saw that any finance analyst is required to have some sort of a coding skill, and companies, especially in the Bay Area, they rather hire somebody with a computer science background because they can teach them finance skills easier than hire a finance person and teach them computer science skills. And that actually led me to Halt, because I was afraid of coding. I didn't have any coding background before, and I was afraid of the unknown, but I embarked on this challenge because I wanted to advance myself. And this is exactly what Halt gave me. Now, in terms of what I got out of the business analytics degree, new coding in Python and R, amazing. Just if somebody is analytical thinker and they like to work with numbers, even if they don't have a coding background, and I might be generalizing here, but I think you, and I'm talking to our audience here, you are going to enjoy coding, and don't be afraid, because the courses are designed to help you get from the beginnings to a decent level. And to answer the question, I think the data visualization and the data cleanup process was the biggest takeaway for me. Thomas mentioned earlier that a huge portion of the data that's available in the real business setting is just non-clean data. I started my role recently at the company that I'm working for, and even though we are working with structured data, the data is messy. And I learned several ways how the data can be cleaned. And again, it might not be perfect, but you want to find a way to be able to work with that. So data cleanup is definitely one, and data visualization. I love Tableau. I love how you can make a data set interactive and you give it to someone. And I think I'm quoting either of the professors that we have on the panel, that you give this to your audience, an interactive plot, and they fall in love with your work and they fall in love with your project. And I think that's the key. And data can be very dry, but if you make it fun, then your audience will more likely to go with your analysis than versus your competitor.
Very
AKA
nice, very
addiction.
nice.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Adam, as well. I believe that a lot of our students always would like to know the difference, because they studied their bachelor's either in their home country or even sometimes abroad, and they don't want to jump in a master's where they'll be having a lot of repetitive, like stuff and curriculum. So it's good for you to show them the difference between what added value did you get from the master's to top up of your bachelor's.
Absolutely.
So thank you for that. I have a general question, and I would like an answer from all of you if possible. What do you think is the next trend for data analytics? So where do you see, because we've seen especially after the pandemic, we've seen a huge shift, a huge wave towards the world being more data driven, using data for everything, the rise of Python, of R, of SQL, like the rise of cryptocurrency as well. So where do you see this trend going? What's the next big thing for you guys? Professor Chase, you want to start?
Sure. Okay, so over the past couple of years, actually since around 2010, data has been understood a lot better especially by business professionals. And as many of you know, especially those of you that have worked before, business is one of the messiest fields that could ever possibly exist. You have your strategy, no one really can follow it directly because it's too general. And also no one can get really specific. Mission statements don't really say very much. And it's just one of those places where there's so many mindsets, it kind of gets very convoluted. So for the past lifetime of business, things have been really focused on experience and intuition. Those are never going away. In fact, what I think analytics is going towards today, and has been for at least the past 10 years, is simply using data as a leverage point on which you can now say, this makes sense based on my experience here, or I feel we should do this based on what this is telling me, and jumping beyond what a model might tell you into something that's actually real. The big innovations are not going to be in AI. AI has been around since the 1960s. It's in fact a philosophical degree as opposed to a tech degree. And it's one of those things that's been overused so much that it's at the top of the hype cycle in terms of terminology. It is coming down and will get to its purpose, but not right now. Blockchain's been around since the 1970s. That is nothing new. It's now called blockchain. That is new. Just like the M1 chip is the new chip for Apple. And since it was such a horrible chip, they're rebranding the same exact thing as the M2 chip. So we've got to keep these things in mind. There's a lot of buzzwords coming your way. And everything is really just based on the fundamentals of, we now have this information that is more quantitative. Let's use that to our advantage to leverage what we feel is the best decision. I think that's kind of a nutshell there. And I'd like to just pass it off to Professor Thomas to get his thoughts, maybe from banking perspective.
Yeah, I would love to second Professor Chase and say that definitely the buzzwords are being zeroed in on, and you know, there is nothing new out there. What I would like to add though on top of that is that all of this analytics, and maybe I'm actually creating a new buzzword here, which I would hate myself for, but what I think is actually going to happen is that all of these quantitative frameworks are going to become more personalized. And what I mean by that is, instead of trying to generalize or the word automation is not the best here, but to an extent, streamline things. Analytics will become more of a personal advice. So let's say you have a specific client or a specific company that comes to you for solutions. Your solutions are going to be definitely more precise, more specific, and what, like I have called it before, more personalized. So analytics is going to become more personalized. There has been some school of thought saying that, oh, we should be able to create templates for everything. Great, right? Because that's cost saving. But that doesn't seem to be the trend, the emerging trend here. The emerging trend is to be able to provide very precise, specific, personalized advice, analytical advice. So I think that's where some of the new startups are going to be heading to in that direction, to be able to provide custom solutions, if you will. Adam.
Yep. Yes. I have a similar thought that I wanted to share as Chase did earlier. I think there's a lot of progress in terms of applying data analytics or business analytics in companies. And many companies are hiring entire new departments just to do that. But there's usually a big divide between the data thinkers, those people who are analytical, who are working with data, and the higher management. And there is a disconnect between them. Like, there's just no true communication. So the data-driven insights are actually being put into business decisions. But I do see a change, however, as many more companies are requiring even like mid-level people to have analytical backgrounds or have understanding at least of the analytical processes. I think this divide is slowly going to disappear. And this is also a generational thing, that as younger generations are getting to those higher management positions, I think the importance of data analytics will be really well implemented and more used across the business or various businesses.
Hey, Adam, did you hear that JP Morgan, which is a huge bank here in the States, that JP Morgan is actually requiring analysts to learn the hard skills? And I think that the requirement was about learning how to code, right? Did you hear that?
I did not hear that, but I'm not surprised.
Yeah. You
know, actually, Professor Thomas, your question is a bit related to what I wanted to know now. I wanted to see if you guys can give me a contrast between because as we know that data analytics is being used in several industries. So we would like to have a contrast between what is the industry that uses data the most versus the industry that uses data the less, or maybe even still doesn't use data. So that's something that we'd like to know if you could give us some insights. Thomas, since you brought up the topic, you go first.
I have to admit that that's a really hard question. My brain, my head, I am so stuck in this data world that it's hard for me to think about an industry that does not require as much data, because any industry that I can think of, and I've been looking around quite a lot. Every industry is collecting a ton of data and doing really a lot of analytics these days. Some industries that I am familiar with that are very data intense. The biotech industry that is quite heavy here in San Francisco, Silicon Valley. The entire tech industry, right, with those giants down in Palo Alto and Santa Clara, right? They are all very data heavy, analytic, coding heavy, right? Driving business insights based on quants. The banking industry, the insurance industry, everything is just it's based on, every analytics is based on a ton of data, right? Regarding customers, regarding products. It's quite hard for me to think of a industry that doesn't use data that much. So maybe I can pass it on to Adam and Professor Chase with the same question. But what I see in the Silicon Valley and San Francisco is that it's getting even more intense. Companies are collecting more data, and it seems like the trend is towards more analytics, more statistics, more data-driven business insights. That's key. Yeah.
Yeah. I would second that same thing. I think IT is utilizing a lot of the data because just customer information is key. No wonder why Facebook initially, or still is, free, because they are getting so much data out of just customer usage that it's really important and valuable to them, so they can sell it later on. On the contrary, in terms of an industry that doesn't use analytics, I initially wanted to say healthcare because I was working in healthcare, and there are just so many inefficiencies and like traditional way of dealing with business in a way. But then I corrected myself, because if I think about it, because there are those inefficiencies in a hospital environment, those healthcare organizations that want to improve these inefficiencies and they want to do cost saving, they are utilizing a lot of these analytical platforms, and the opportunities are just limitless.
Right. So I have a few thoughts on this as well. So right now, number one in the world is transactional data in China. In fact, transactional data is the number one source of data collection, credit cards, that sort of thing. But this is a bit of an odd question. And the only reason for that is it's not so much about the data velocity as it is the other things. So how are they using data? What are they doing that's innovating in terms of the data? So number one there is actually healthcare. Now, the reason we don't see that, Adam, as much is because there's so much regulation and so much privacy that it's just very hard to connect things. And this is why now in healthcare in China, they ask you, click this button to share everywhere. So you got the COVID vaccine, click this button, share it everywhere. Otherwise, if they cannot collect any data, they cannot share even from your general practitioner to your bone doctor. Can't do it. So that is actually a good model for every other industry in the world. The reason is now privacy is becoming a factor that is under the control of the users. We can block cookies, we have new browsers, and we have do not sell my personal information going all over the world right now. So that's kind of one of the role model industries at the moment. The one that seems to be researched the most as non-data heavy is actually construction. And the reason is it's so traditional and it's so based on a traditional project mindset. And it's also so unknown. You never know what you're getting into in terms of the things that are going to delay your project. So that's one of the ones that's staying away from data for the time being.
I actually have an interesting example here for construction here in the US. The company that I'm working for is called Matterport, and the company is specializing in creating digital twins of buildings from within the inside. How I like to call it to those people who are not familiar, is kind of like Google Earth Street View, but for indoor buildings. And one of our use cases is capturing construction buildings as they are being constructed, and the model is able to like store how the construction was looking like at a certain point. And there are a lot of different ways how the company can benefit from the technology in terms of just measurements or a lot of different ways. So there's slow adoption, but it's coming even in construction because companies want to find ways how they can be more efficient and make more money.
Very nice, very nice. Thank you, Adam, for adding that. Now let's shift away a bit from like being too inside data, and I would like to talk a bit about the city. So what makes San Francisco so special in terms of tech and data? Why San Francisco in particular? That's a question for everyone as well.
Adam, you have the background. So since you have the background, you can go first.
Yeah, absolutely. I lived in the Bay Area, not specifically San Francisco, but in the Bay Area for about 6-ish years. And it really feels like a bubble. Many people ask me, how is America? Well, I knew the Bay Area. I didn't know the whole America. It's like a little own bubble, and it's very much different than the other parts of the country. And there are all these tech companies who in each other's neighborhood or like backyard, I should say, that this community is attracting a lot of super amazing talent from all over the world. And because those pool of people are in the small geographical area, just same people in the same area is creating innovation. And that's why I think it just became the hub of innovation, and especially in IT.
Hey, Adam, here's
Sure.
a quick joke. Do you think that's because of the fog from your background? People tend to stay longer hours in the code at home.
That's right. It's Carl the Fog, the famous fog in San Francisco.
Nice.
Yep.
Want to go next, Chase?
Sure. San Francisco is an odd anomaly, the Bay Area, I have to say, but they're more or less a victim of their own success, kind of like what we're seeing in Boston today with biotechnology. You can think of that like a good sports team. They just start having some successes. They start attracting more fans, more athletes, things like that. So San Francisco thrives also on being one of the strangest cultures in the United States. Adam said it's a bubble. I describe it as more of an island than a bubble, just because people in San Francisco seem to be very, very attuned to their hobbies. If you like salsa dancing, for example, you're going to do it maybe 5 days a week. And your networking is now very personal as opposed to more professional. Thus, it leads to more of a casual approach to problem solving, more creativity, more innovation, less focus on traditional means such as suits and ties and business cards. That's maybe the biggest standout for the Bay Area, at least from other places in the United States. How do you feel, Thomas?
Yeah, totally second that. And talking about ties and bow ties, I actually go to work at Wells Fargo wearing exactly what I am wearing right now, which is basically a t-shirt. It's very informal, and definitely since this became the tech hub, Silicon Valley tech hub, there is just a ton of data, and that's why this analytical thing is thriving here. But I wanted to touch point on what I actually, because I've been this past year, it's been the first time I've been to Dubai, and I was really positively surprised with what I have heard from people in Dubai. And I visited the expo and talked with a really smart lady who worked at the forgot what the bank name is, NDB, something like that.
Emirates
And,
NBD.
and she works there
Yeah.
as a marketing analyst. And we had a really good chat about how analytics are booming right now in Dubai and how this data culture is booming right now. And what she said is that apparently there is a, and I'm just quoting her, that there is a mindset change, a shift, and companies, a bank probably realized it some time ago, but companies are realizing the importance of trying to capitalize on the data that they are collecting. So there is apparently a huge boom there. And it could be due to many factors. We haven't gotten into what the causes could be, but she had indicated a huge trend right now happening in Dubai. So if anyone here is in Dubai, that's what I've been told. You're in the right spot.
Absolutely, absolutely. I can attest to that, having lived in Dubai and living in Dubai since 2019. So yeah, thank you, Professor Thomas, for that. I would like to know as well, that's a question divided into two, we could say. So for Adam, I would like to know, can you tell us a bit about your classmates? And we also heard that you got a job on your STEM OPT, so congratulations on that. I'm sure that's a big achievement that most students look for when they go to the US. So we'd like to hear that from you, Adam. And at the same time, professors, if you could tell us a bit, the students that you've worked with, if you know where they ended and in which industry and what type of companies. So maybe Adam, you'd like to start.
Would you mind rephrasing the question? You wanted to learn more about the classmates in my program?
No, so for you, we would like to learn more about the story behind how you were able to achieve the job that you have now. So how are you able to find the job that you have now on your STEM OPT? And on the other hand, for the professors, if you could tell us a bit more about the students you've worked with and where did they end up, in which industries, what type of companies?
If that's okay that I start, then I would love to
go ahead.
mention, it's a buzzword. We talked about buzzwords earlier. It's a buzzword. It's networking, essential. And I learned this the hard way. When I was applying for my first internship, I just did it not in a wise way. I went online and I kept clicking the apply here, apply there. I went on the job search sites and just blindly submitted my applications. And of course, the result was not satisfying because it's just a blank page and you cannot personalize it. However, I learned it along this journey of mine in the US that networking is essential and networking through jobs is even more essential. So I had a chance to do a panel for my alma mater too, for my bachelor's, and I highlighted this there too, that finding a job through networking and then using that job to find like-minded people and making connections there will lead you to the next job. And that's what happened to me too. I had a private equity internship last summer, which I didn't see myself in private equity, but I wanted to get some sort of, experience there. And then the skills I learned there led me to the other job, and I made some connections there too. And the last job, or my most recent job, also came through networking. It was actually networking, but I received an internal referral from my girlfriend, actually, who started an internship last summer at Matterport. She climbed the corporate ladder and she became full-time. And if you make connection with someone, whether it's in your close network or a little bit farther out, that's how you're going to get the job, that you have an in and you are not an outsider of a blind application. I think that's the key. And I encourage everyone that if you are looking for a job, try to find somebody who might be somehow associated with the target company. Don't be afraid to reach out to them, make that connection, and they will hopefully refer you to the position.
So in a nutshell, if you find someone working in a company that you want, date this person and this person will help you.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Thank you, Adam. So over to you, professors.
Okay, sure, I can go ahead. So the students end up all over the place, to be honest. And that's simply because some are coming in with a background, with work experience. And one of our best pieces of advice is as you graduate, since you have domain knowledge in some industry, please go back to that industry for a little while to learn how to apply your analytics. There's going to be a little bit of a gap. Our program's quite practitioner focused, but still, when we teach you, for example, a Bernoulli trial or why we do descriptive statistics without your own personal application later in your career, it can be a little tough. If you don't have experience, don't worry, you're going to be just fine. But those of you with it, we request that. And actually, we've seen extremely amazing things from those people joining the program that had no background in tech, that didn't know how to code, that couldn't tell you what a server is with any rational explanation whatsoever. And these are not the students that get straight A's. In fact, any student that's focused on grades after maybe their first course is making a huge mistake. No one cares about that in any analytical role or any role whatsoever in Silicon Valley. You have to realize that Mark Zuckerberg never graduated university, neither did Bill Gates, even though he's up in Seattle. But also at the same time, some of the best engineers I've met dropped out junior year of undergrad and just started working as software engineers. So we've got to take that all into consideration. And I'm seeing a lot of questions on outsourcing. I didn't realize I was sending it just to the panelists and hosts. That is one of the things that is going to restrict you in your career a little bit right out of the gates, because you won't get into a problem very deep. If you're hiring outsourcing analytics, it's kind of like in 1983 when David Ogilvy said that he's never going to do that in research. He was an advertising giant. And he said, I'm never going to outsource my eyes. I want my team to learn, even though it's slower and more expensive, because that's how we retain good clients. That's how we have Coca-Cola and all of these clients working with us. But it also takes a long time. It's at least 2 years for even a PhD level statistician to break even on their cost because they don't know their industry well enough. And that's going all the way back to, we need good communication. We need to understand our problems and what we're working on. And that experience and intuition really matters. So students, if you have no background whatsoever in tech, don't worry, you're actually going to learn things the right way. If you do have a background, you have a responsibility to help your classmates, but also to reset your mind, because a lot of the things that you've learned need a different perspective. Thomas, I see you smiling and nodding your head. So I know you're very, very happy today because the sun's popping up probably right now.
It is coming up. Yep. But yeah, that's a really good point, Chase. So one thing that comes to my mind is this intersection profile. Basically taking your passion or prior experience or background, and this could be in any industry, right? And combining that with analytics, with data-driven solutions, right? And creating this intersection profile, which Chase, is that kind of what you were going with? This kind of like combining those two? Yeah. That seems to be some sort of a secret sauce. Well, not so secret anymore, right? Having this intersection profile within some industry and combining it with analytics. But going back to the question, what I see a lot of, and Professor Chase, tell me if you see the same or different. I see a lot of students actually going in two directions. Some students prefer to work at startups, and we see quite a few alumni go and work at really evolving and dynamically growing companies. But we also see students targeting bigger companies, more mature companies, tech giants, bigger banks, and we see them land really interesting careers at some of those tech companies. So I think I'm going to second actually what Professor Chase said before. The opportunities are really wide, and basically it all depends on what your passion is and what you feel more comfortable doing. You can go in almost any direction you want connected to analytics after this degree. Would you guys agree with that, Adam and Chase?
Absolutely.
I would also
you.
like to point out, just on Adam's question on people prefer computer science and software engineering. Those are very different disciplines. It's hard to see that without being in tech, but also only about 3% of the most elite coders will end up being programmers and software engineers. Everybody else gets in the mix. So think of it kind of like business, where we have people in sales, people in accounting, people in marketing, people in all these different roles. Each one is specifically designed for a different skill set. But tons of directions to go. Some are a little bit off limits. You're not going to be a professional cloud computer at the end of this program. But in general, I'd say maybe 80 to 90% of the roles out there, you will be qualified for, or at least on the way to be qualified for some of the more advanced ones.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you very much for adding that, Chase. So we still have 2 questions. Just to not go a bit above of time, I'm going to ask them together, and then you guys can answer one after the other. So the one question is, what is a big misconception that people have about data science? And the second question is, what advice would you give students in general who are thinking of starting the business analytics program or going into a career in data science?
I can start if you guys
Yeah, go ahead.
are okay with that. Yeah. So I think that the biggest misconception about data science is due to the fact that it was a buzzword and for a long time, right? But actually, people think that data science, oh, that is just so hard. It's some people actually say that data science is statistics, pure statistics, which I don't think is the case. It's actually a combination of many things. And some people are almost to an extent afraid of data science, but that should not be the case. That should not be the case. Data science is totally manageable, totally understandable, a combination of many skills, many hard and soft skills. So I think that's one element. And the second question, Jed, could you repeat that very quickly?
Yeah. So what advice would you give for students wanting to pursue a business analytics degree or wanting to go into a career in data science?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think the answer to this question is a question being that I would ask myself if I were to be applying for this program. What is my goal? What is my end goal? How can I leverage some of the skills like SQL, R, Python, data communication skills, data presentation skills? How can I leverage that for my current situation, right? Because you might have some prior background, prior skills, prior education in different fields. How can I combine that and create this intersection profile to help me pivot on this program? If that makes sense.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Thomas. Professor Chase, you're up.
Sure, and I'm just typing away in the chat as we go. Now, the biggest misconception, I agree with you, Professor Thomas. I also would like to point out that it is not as much of a math-heavy role as you might imagine. Math is simply a philosophy of how the world works, and it is excellent to have that. That's a very good thing. But a lot of what happens in business analytics is really just helping other people test out their ideas. And also, the whole idea of failure is very different in analytics. This is a huge misconception as well, that because all the stories you hear are like UPS drivers never turn left anymore, they're saving $80 million a year or something like that in gas and things like that. No, yes, those do happen, but 99% of the time your idea is going to fail. And what you need to have as a mindset is simply learn fast, fail fast, and one idea is going to be successful that changes the business in a way that is very beneficial. So that is one of those things. It's not a super revolutionary field. It's just a field that leverages so many ideas from other people that you become kind of a centerpiece for some very important things. You're right at the heart of innovation with analytics. Best piece of advice is essentially to not be afraid. Don't be afraid to paint. That's what I say in class. And I used to ask the MBAs when I would teach them math, who's afraid of numbers? Right away, 8:30 in the morning on day one, almost everybody raises their hand with the exception of a few engineers in the room. And then we start talking about why that's been a bad idea and why they cannot run away, even though maybe in undergrad they had run away from numbers a bit, selected a major that was less number heavy. This is going to be a major drawback. So you just can't be afraid. You're going to make some mistakes in coding. It's totally fine. It's something we can erase and start over. And the hardest part is just getting started, just caring about yourself, your education, being motivated, focusing on the right things. Fear is a big part of it. As Professor Thomas has said, once you're over that hump, you're good to go. Just like having a mortgage, you kind of fear in 29 years, will I still have my job? I mean, come on, guys, be confident in yourselves.
Very nice, very nice. Thanks for the advice. Adam, we'll wrap up with you.
Yeah, I just had one last quick thought about those people who are considering going into business analytics too. If you, and I'm just speaking for myself, I might be generalizing here, but if you like numbers and you have an analytical way of thinking, you are going to enjoy the program. It's going to give you a lot of good skills that are very, very, very valuable. I think someone told me when I was onboarding or when I was coming to HALT that the program has a very high return on the investment. I think the highest out of all the programs at HALT. And this really shows when it comes to people getting a job after graduation. And just last thought about the skill sets. I think it's also really important to advance yourself in your soft skills and in your communication skills, because a large portion of data science is also communicating that analysis to outside stakeholders or management. And your analysis can be any good. If you cannot communicate those insights, it's going to be worthless. And a good skill of a data analyst is communication skills. So as much as coding is really important, it's also important to be a good communicator. And I think a large portion of the program is group work at HALT. And that really allows you to advance these skills and work with your peers to get to the common solution.
Amazing, amazing. So we've gone a bit above time, but that's okay. I would like to thank the panelists first. Thank you, Adam, for your insights. Thank you, Professor Chase and Professor Thomas, for sharing your experiences inside and outside the classroom. And also thank you for answering the questions on the chat. I can see that there've been some good movement. I'm sure that the professors and Adam himself would be very, very happy to answer your questions if you'd like to reach out on LinkedIn. So Garima, final word for you.
Thank you, Jad. All I can say is thank you so much for this really honest discussion. Confessions, as we would call it. No, but honestly, I learned a lot, and thank you so much for taking the time out. It was super insightful. I, for one, didn't have much knowledge on what we spoke about today, but I definitely learned a lot, and I hope everyone else did too. So thank you, Professor Chase, Professor Thomas, Adam, for taking the time out. And that's all from us today, and I hope to see everyone soon. Thank you so much.
Have a good night, and for the ones fasting as well, Ramadan Kareem.
Thanks.
Bye.